Hello there, and welcome to the sleepy sky. The day has unfolded and folded again, in its own slow way, and now it is gathering itself into evening. Whatever you carried with you, whatever thoughts pressed at the edges of your mind, can loosen their hold for a while. This is a place for softness and quiet, a place where even time seems to lean back and rest. You have reached a gentle shoreline between waking and sleep, and here nothing is urgent, nothing is loud, nothing needs to be solved. The night bends closer, calm and patient, like an old friend sitting beside you in the dark. Geology is often spoken of in grand scales and heavy words, yet at its heart it is the story of how things find their place. It is the story of minerals settling, continents drifting, mountains rising and wearing away, all in rhythms so unhurried they feel like silence. The earth has been turning through these cycles for billions of years, and every small stone carries a piece of that memory. Every pebble was once part of something larger. Every grain once sat in a different shape. The ground beneath you is not fixed. It is simply moving much slower than you can see. The stones you might pass on a path or keep on a windowsill are pages of this long quiet book. They do not speak, but they hold shapes written by pressure, heat, and time. A smooth river stone has been turned over and over by water that never needed to rush. A jagged rock on a hillside has held its place through storms and sunlight, through frost and thaw, through days that felt endless and nights that were perfectly still. The solid things we walk on are not frozen. They are simply slower than our days, slower than our thoughts, slower than our breathing. Imagine a small stone resting in the open palm of your hand, cool at first, then gently warming to your skin. The surface might be smooth or faintly grainy, perhaps patterned with pale streaks or tiny speckles. As the stone rests there, it seems quiet, but it carries the echoes of a river or a mountain, of deep layers or ancient shores. A small stone resting in your hand seems quiet, and as a small stone rests, your thoughts can begin to rest as well. Deep within that stone, atoms sit in careful order. They are arranged in patterns that repeat, forming what scientists call a crystal lattice. When minerals form, atoms shift and slide until they find positions that feel stable, positions that require less energy, positions that can last. This is one of the quiet truths of geology. When energy is released, when heat fades, when movement slows, atoms settle into calm arrangements. Order appears not from force, but from relaxation. Minerals form when matter chooses the path of ease. This slow settling into structure can mirror the way your own thoughts begin to soften tonight. All day they may have been tumbling, colliding, spinning in quick and tangled patterns. But in the soft dark, with nothing to demand your attention, they can begin to line up, to space out, to fall into quieter forms. Just as minerals crystallize as they cool, the mind can find clarity as it slows. There is no need to hold every idea at once. There is time for each one to drift down, like grains of sand settling at the bottom of a still pool. The crust of the earth, the outer layer beneath your feet, is a mosaic of these minerals and stones. Some formed from molten rock that cooled, once bright and fluid, now dark and calm. Some formed from sediments that fell in layers, pressed together by the gentle weight of everything above them. Some formed through transformation, when older rocks experienced new heat and pressure, changing without ever fully breaking. Transformation without breaking is one of the Earth's oldest habits. If you could look at a cross-section of the ground below you, you would see strata, layers upon layers of rock and soil, each with its own shade, its own texture, its own story. The deeper ones remember older worlds, older climates, older oceans. The upper layers remember more recent days, more recent rains, more recent winds. Layers remembering different times rest on top of one another. And as these layers rest, you're invited to rest too. It is perfectly fine to set your burdens down for a while, like stones placed gently at the edge of a path. Think of a mountain ridge rising in slow curves against a dim sky. Those sharp peaks, those folded slopes, were not created by a single moment of force. They grew through the slow collision of plates deep beneath the surface, through rock pushed upward over millions of years. Mountains rise as plates move, as continents drift, as tiny increments build into towering forms. Mountains rise as slow changes accumulate. And as slow changes accumulate, a sense of quiet strength appears, steady and calm. The stones that make up a mountain began as molten material inside the earth. At one time they were part of magma, a glowing fluid mixture of minerals. As that molten rock moved into cooler places, it lost its heat. The energy drained away. Crystals began to form and grow in the cooling melt. This is how granite forms. Minerals like quartz and feldspar emerging in interlocking patterns, filling space with orderly calm. Cooling brings structure. Slowing brings form. What was once wild and fluid becomes stable, solid, and still. Now picture a different kind of stone, one you might find beside a slow-moving river. It is small enough to hold, worn round by years of gentle movement. The river did not need to roar or crash to shape it. Instead, the water flowed steadily, carrying the stone along, brushing it against other stones, smoothing edges bit by bit. The stone turned, rolled, rested, then moved again. Each contact softened a corner, dulling its sharpness. Each season brought a deeper smoothness. Each season brought a deeper smoothness. And with each deeper smoothness, both the stone and the river grew more familiar to one another. In the same way, the experiences of your life have worn away some of your edges. Moments of challenge, times of change, days of uncertainty, they can feel rough as they move past, yet over time they soften certain reactions, ease certain fears, smooth certain habits. You do not need to rush this process. The stone does not hurry its rounding. The river does not hurry its flow. They simply continue together, and the shape of the stone changes as a quiet result, not as a demand. Let your heart be as patient as that river, as patient as that stone. Calm can return in its own unforced time. There is another kind of rock, formed not from cooling melts, but from countless tiny pieces coming together. Sedimentary rocks are built from fragments. Grains of sand, bits of shell, small pieces of older stones. These fragments settle in layers at the bottom of lakes, seas, and rivers. With time they are pressed together, cemented by minerals carried in water, fused into a single solid form. Many small pieces become one. Many restless particles become something steady. You can imagine a layer of sand on a quiet seabed. Above it more sand drifts down, then more, then perhaps a thin layer of clay, then more sand again. The weight of the new layers presses gently on the older ones. Dissolved minerals seep through the spaces between grains, filling them, binding them, turning loose material into sandstone. The process is not loud, it is not sudden. It is simply patient, pressing and binding until a new rock exists where once there were only separate grains. In your own life, small moments of rest can accumulate in much the same way. One deep breath, then another. A few quiet minutes on one evening, then another evening, then many evenings over months and years. At first they might feel isolated, like separate grains scattered across a busy day. Yet as they repeat and return, they begin to stack into layers of calm memory. They become part of the structure of who you are, a kind of inner sandstone made from repeated gentle pauses. You do not have to build this all at once. You're allowed to rest in small pieces. You're allowed to rest in small pieces, and those pieces can still form something whole. Sometimes geologists speak of metamorphic rocks, stones that were once one type, changed by new heat and pressure into another. Shale can become slate, limestone can become marble. The original minerals rearrange themselves under new conditions without melting completely, finding fresh patterns and new stability. Metamorphism is change within continuity, transformation without total loss. It is the Earth's way of saying that even under pressure, new forms of beauty can arise. Think of marble, cool and smooth, with subtle veins of colour winding through white or pale grey. Those veins are traces of impurities in the original rock, carried through the stone by fluids, reshaped by heat and time. What began as simple limestone, perhaps formed from countless tiny shells on an ancient seafloor, was buried deeper, warmed, compressed, and slowly altered. The shells are no longer visible, yet their presence is not gone, only transformed. Difficult conditions did not erase them. They refined them into something new. Within your own story, there may have been times of pressure, of intensity, of feeling pushed or pulled in directions you did not choose. These experiences can leave marks, yet, like marble, they can also create gentle patterns of understanding, soft lines of empathy, new textures of strength. You're not the same as you once were, but the earlier layers are still there beneath the surface, supporting the present moment. Let the thought sink in that growth can be quiet. Growth does not always roar. Often it unfolds with the same muted grace as rock changing in the dark. Now your attention can return to that small stone in your hand, or one you remember from a walk, or simply an imagined pebble resting in the centre of your awareness. Its colour is calm, perhaps soft grey, perhaps muted brown, perhaps mottled with faint greens or blues. Its surface tells of the journey it has taken, the forces it has met, the places it has rested. In its weight there is a reminder that you too can settle, that you too can stop moving for a while without losing who you are. Nothing asks you to be anything else in this moment. Nothing asks you to be anything other than present, quiet, and gently breathing. The air around you is part of this slow story as well. The same elements that form minerals appear in the atmosphere, dissolved in water, woven through soil and stone. Oxygen and silicon, calcium and iron, carbon and magnesium. They move in cycles between rock, water, air, and living things. What rests in a stone today may one day drift in a cloud, or dissolve in the sea, or become part of a shell, a leaf, a bone. The boundaries between solid and living, between earth and life, are softer than they seem. Boundaries between earth and life are softer than they seem, and as those boundaries soften, the sense of being separate from the world can soften too. You're not lying apart from the earth. You are lying upon it within its thin, gentle layer of air, wrapped in its ancient pull of gravity. The minerals that make up your bones once moved through rocks and oceans. The calcium in your body once rested in sediments or shells. The iron in your blood once sat in deep, dark stones, or in dust carried by the wind. You are, in a quiet and literal way, made of the same matter as the stones that remember geologic time. You carry some of the Earth's memory within you. Because of this, the pace of geology can be a comfort. It reminds you that not everything must change quickly, that not everything needs to be decided tonight. Rocks do not hurry to become mountains or sand or soil. They simply respond to the forces around them, slowly, steadily, with a patience that can feel almost infinite. Sitting with that awareness, you can let go of the idea that every thought needs immediate attention. You can let your mind spread out like a plane of stone, wide and still, its details softened by distance and dusk. The faintest details of the Earth's surface, tiny fractures in stone, fine grains in a cliff face, a scattering of pebbles along a path, are created by processes so gradual they rarely draw notice. Yet they add up, century after century, into landscapes that feel natural and complete. The same can be true of the unremarkable moments of quiet in your life. Each one may seem small, but together they shape the inner landscape where your thoughts move. Together they shape a place where rest feels possible, where calm feels familiar, where sleep can arrive like a soft, inevitable tide. As the night deepens around you, the stones of the world continue their silent work. Mountains stand, untroubled by the passing of hours. Riverbeds cradle their pebbles. Beaches hold their sand. Beneath forests and fields, bedrock supports the soil, the roots, the water flowing in hidden channels. Nothing in this slow architecture of Earth demands your attention, yet it is always there, steady and reliable. Always there, steady and reliable, holding the weight of everything above. You can imagine now that your thoughts are like those stones, gently finding a place to rest. One by one, they settle. The louder ones lower their voices. The smaller ones roll into quiet corners. Soon there is only the broad, soft sense of being held by something older and calmer than any worry. You are part of the same world that forms crystals in cooling rock, that rounds stones in patient rivers, that stacks sediments into new layers of time. You belong to a planet that knows how to be still, even while it moves. In that stillness, geology becomes more than a science. It becomes a reminder that the deepest changes can be subtle, and that strength and softness can exist together. Stones are strong, yet they wear down into sand. Mountains are immense, yet they rise from tiny shifts and sink in nearly invisible ways. Around you, beneath you, within you, the same pattern repeats. Slow, gentle change giving rise to new forms. Slow, gentle change giving rise to new forms, each one finding its own way to rest. And as you lie here, feeling the pull of sleep grow a little closer, you can imagine yourself walking along a quiet path scattered with stones. Each one is a small chapter in the Earth's long history. Each one is a reminder that time can be kind, that slowness can be beautiful, that stillness is not empty. From these small, grounded beginnings, the story continues, moving inward, moving deeper, toward the hidden patterns and the quiet radiance within the minerals themselves. In this gentle descent, the Earth reveals its quiet transformations, and the night invites you to drift with it into deeper calm. In the deep, quiet spaces of the Earth, far from wind and surface sound, minerals begin as patterns of patience. Elements drift in hot fluids or cooling melts, moving and pausing until they find shapes that require less effort to hold. At a tiny scale, atoms prefer balance. They settle into repeating arrangements, creating what is called a crystal lattice. This is not a loud event. No flash announces the change. Heat slowly fades, motion slows, and order grows in silence. Every mineral is a record of that slowing. The way atoms choose their positions, the way repeating units stack, the way bonds form and relax, all of it is written into the geometry of the crystal. Some lattices are simple, like soft grids. Others are intricate, like folded frameworks. Yet all are expressions of the same tendency. A movement from disorder toward a calmer, more stable pattern. Inside minerals, matter chooses rest over turbulence, structure over drift, calm over chaos. When a crystal forms within cooling magma, the process can take thousands of years. The melt begins as a restless mixture, its atoms in constant motion, jostling and flowing past one another. As it cools, different minerals crystallize at different temperatures. Olivine at higher heat, then pyroxene, then feldspar and quartz, as the remaining liquid grows cooler and richer in certain elements. One by one, these minerals appear, each claiming a shape that suits its internal bonds. The magma is like a crowded hall where movement gradually slows. Crystals are the small groups that settle at the edges, finding stillness first. Within a single piece of granite, this history is preserved. Pale feldspar, translucent quartz, darker flecks of mica and hornblende sit together in a patchwork of interlocking crystals. Each grain has its own boundaries, its own angles, its own reflective surface. Yet together they form one solid stone. Granite holds the memory of the magma that cooled, the temperatures it passed through, the timescales that allowed each mineral to claim its quiet place. The stone appears simple and still, but its interior is a map of changing conditions and gradual peace. Minerals can also form in water rather than in molten rock. When mineral-rich water seeps through cracks and cavities, it carries dissolved ions, small charged particles of elements like calcium, magnesium, iron, and silica. As conditions shift, the water may no longer be able to hold all those ions. They begin to come out of solution, attaching to surfaces, building tiny crystals that grow with each passing year. Growth in water is slow and layered, like frost forming on a window, but measured not in minutes, rather in ages. In some cavities, the result is a geode, a hollow space lined with crystals. The outer shell looks plain from the outside, often dull and unremarkable. Inside, the walls may be coated in sparkling quartz or glowing amethyst, each point a record of water chemistry and time. The contrast between outer and inner surfaces reflects a gentle truth. From the surface, the full story often cannot be seen. From the surface, the full story often cannot be seen, yet the hidden structure remains quiet and complete. Colour in minerals tells another layer of that story. Pure quartz, for example, is clear or milky white. Yet when small amounts of iron enter the lattice and radiation alters its state, amethyst appears with its soft purple tones. In other crystals, tiny impurities can turn green, blue, red, or gold. The basic structure remains the same. A small difference in composition, or a subtle shift in the way electrons respond to light, creates a new hue. Light enters, some wavelengths are absorbed, others are allowed to pass or are scattered back, and the eye reads this as colour. Under gentle illumination, a piece of amethyst may show deep violet in the thicker parts, fading to lilac at the tips. A slice of agate reveals soft bands of white, brown, and amber, each band formed by slight changes in the mineral mix as layers were deposited. A polished piece of serpentine might show muted greens, like moss seen through water. These colours are not painted on the surface. They arise from the way the crystal's internal structure interacts with light. The glow is built into the stone. The glow is built into the stone, carried quietly whether anyone looks or not. In some minerals, light does more than reflect. It can bend and split, passing through the crystal at different speeds depending on direction. This is called birefringence, and it occurs because the lattice is not the same in all directions. Under polarized light, such minerals display shifting rainbows and delicate patterns, like woven cloth made of color. Even in complete silence, within a thin slice on a glass slide, the stone responds to light with subtle motion. That motion is not sound or vibration. It is a gentle play of brightness and shade, a reminder that even stable structures can hold small, shimmering surprises. The surfaces of crystals tell their own stories as well. Some are flat and smooth, forming natural faces that reflect light in crisp flashes. Others are etched, pitted, or coated with fine films of other minerals. Over time, contact with water, air, and temperature change can soften sharp edges, rounding them, clouding clear surfaces, blurring once perfect planes. No crystal remains untouched by its environment. Yet even as outer layers wear away, the inner lattice persists until conditions shift enough to change it entirely. Certain minerals form in layers that resemble slow-growing shells. Mica, for instance, forms in sheets that can be peeled apart, each layer thin and glimmering. These sheets result from the way atoms bind more strongly in some directions than in others. The bonds between layers are weaker, allowing the mineral to split easily along those planes. In this structure there is a subtle echo of rest, strong connections where they are most needed, softer links where separation may eventually occur. Strong connections where they are most needed, softer links where separation may eventually occur, giving the mineral both resilience and flexibility. In other cases, minerals grow in fibrous forms like threads or needles. Asbestos minerals, for example, develop elongate fibers due to their internal arrangement. While some of these fibers can be hazardous when disturbed and inhaled, in their undisturbed natural setting, they are simply another expression of crystal geometry. The Earth does not favour one shape over another. It allows many patterns, many forms, each arising from the same underlying principles of balance and bond. Every mineral has a characteristic hardness, a measure of how resistant it is to being scratched. This property depends on bond strength and lattice structure. Diamond, with its tightly interlinked carbon network, ranks at the top of the hardness scale. Talc, with its weak layers that slide easily past one another, rests near the bottom. Between them lies a continuum of textures, from the chalky softness of gypsum to the firm glass-like feel of quartz. This scale is not a competition. It is simply a way of describing how tightly each structure holds itself together. Some stones cling to their shape, others are ready to give way. Both modes of being have their place. Luster describes how a mineral reflects light. Some surfaces shine with a metallic gleam, like pyrite, reflecting light in a bold, cool flash. Others have a glassy gloss, a silky sheen, or a subtle, waxy glow. Still others scatter light so softly that they appear almost matte, like powdered chalk or weathered clay. The quality of luster can make a stone feel sharp or gentle, bright or muted. In low light, a piece of satin sheen mineral can seem to hold its own faint moon inside, easing the eyes into a softer focus. Temperature brings out another quiet aspect of minerals. A stone pressed between fingers can feel cool at first, because it conducts heat away from the skin. Over time it warms slightly, matching the body more closely. Dense stones often feel heavier and cooler. Porous ones feel lighter, sometimes almost warm from the start. These sensations are simple, yet they connect the solid, slow world of rock to the flowing, fast world of living tissue. Heat passes between them with no effort from either side. Contact alone is enough. Contact alone is enough, and through that contact a small balance is reached. In the wider crust, minerals rarely exist alone. They combine to form rocks, and those rocks form the foundations of landscapes. Basalt flows from volcanic vents, cooling into dark, fine-grained slabs rich in plagioclase and pyroxene. Limestone accumulates in warm, shallow seas, formed from shells and skeletons made of calcite. Sandstones grow from accumulated grains of quartz and feldspar, cemented by minerals precipitated from groundwater. Each rock is a community of minerals, each mineral a small, ordered domain within that community. Time adds another layer to this quiet story. Fresh crystals, newly formed, hold crisp edges and sharp points. Over long spans they may be fractured by stress, veined by new mineral deposits, or altered by chemical reactions. Feldspar can weather into clay. Olivine can transform into serpentine. Iron-rich minerals can oxidize into rust-colored coatings. These changes often proceed at the pace of seasons and centuries, a rate so slow that no single day reveals it. The stone simply exists, and the transformation unfolds. The stone simply exists, and the transformation unfolds, one invisible step after another. Within all of this, there's a kind of hidden glow, not always a physical light, though sometimes minerals do emit a gentle radiance when exposed to ultraviolet rays, a phenomenon known as fluorescence. Calcite, fluorite, and some varieties of apatite can shine with greens, blues, and soft pinks under such illumination. But even in darkness, there is a sense of quiet potential within a mineral, a readiness to interact with light, to respond to touch, to carry faint traces of the conditions that created it. The inner order of a mineral is a form of calm. Atoms arranged in repeating patterns do not need to shuffle constantly. They vibrate around their positions, sharing energy with neighboring atoms, but the overall structure remains. Stability does not mean complete stillness. It means movement held within bounds, motion that does not disturb the larger shape. Stability is the dance of parts within a constant whole. A mind observing these minerals can mirror their patience. Attention can linger on a single detail, a pale band in agate, a tiny inclusion frozen in quartz, a delicate fracture running through feldspar, and simply stay there. No need to jump from thought to thought. No need to chase every image that appears. Focus can rest like light on a stone surface, steady and unhurried. In this way, the quiet glow inside minerals becomes a gentle invitation toward an inner quiet glow as well. As geological processes continue, new minerals form while older ones dissolve. At mid-ocean ridges, hot fluids circulate through young oceanic crust, leaching elements from the rock and precipitating sulfide minerals around hydrothermal vents. At subduction zones, Sediments and basalt are carried downward, changing under heat and pressure into new metamorphic assemblages. High in mountain belts, deep crustal rocks are uplifted, bringing garnet, kyanite, and other minerals to the surface over millions of years. Everywhere, the Earth rearranges its crystal patterns, never rushed, never fully still. Yet, for all their complexity, minerals can also be companions in simplicity. A single piece of quartz on a desk, a small bowl of tumbled stones near a bedside, a fragment of mica glinters faintly on a forest path. These objects do not demand interpretation. They simply exist as reminders of something older and slower than daily concerns. Their presence can soften a room the way a candle might, not through brightness, but through the suggestion of another rhythm. Patterns repeat at different scales. The lattice in a tiny crystal, the arrangement of minerals in a rock, the distribution of rocks in a landscape, all these levels show structure arising from simple forces acting over time. Gravity drawing denser materials downward, temperature gradients guiding crystal formation, chemical gradients shaping mineral stability. The same basic principles apply in a grain and in a mountain, in a gemstone and in a continent. The same basic principles apply again and again, creating a world that is both diverse and unified. In this layered, ordered, patient realm, there is no hurry to finish anything. Minerals form, change, and dissolve according to conditions, not according to a schedule. Some remain stable for billions of years, others exist briefly, then alter into new structures as fluids pass through or temperatures shift. Nothing is wasted. Every arrangement feeds into another, every phase leads gently to the next. It is possible to imagine the Earth's crust as a slow, glowing tapestry of bonds and balances. Deep down, where temperatures rise and rocks soften, new minerals crystallize, each one a quiet gesture towards stability. Higher up, in cooler, more open spaces, geodes fill with quartz and calcite, lining empty pockets with delicate points. At the surface, weathered grains shine in sun or under clouded skies, still bearing the internal order that formed in places far below. All of these scenes, from the hidden depths to the open air, are connected through the secret glow inside minerals. That glow is not always visible, yet it is always present, in the way crystals interact with light, in the way they respond to heat, in the way they hold their shapes across ages. It is the glow of a system that has found a way to rest in its own form. As the Earth continues its slow rotations, as nights lengthen and shorten with the seasons, the mineral world keeps its calm pace. Atoms remain in their lattices, bonds stretch and relax with temperature, then return. Crystals hold their angles until the world around them changes enough to ask for a new shape. In the meantime, they simply are. As steady companions in a universe that often feels quick. From this quiet understanding, attention can drift outward again, toward the rocks that shelter these minerals. For every glowing crystal, there is a host stone around it, a matrix that carried it through pressure and time. Within that host, minerals share space, share stress, and share histories. Together they form the larger structures that shape the land. And with this soft glow in mind, the path leads naturally inward again, deeper into the stones that cradle these crystals, deeper into the calm heart of rock, where minerals rest together in their patient patterns, waiting beneath the world in gentle, enduring stillness. Water has always been one of the Earth's quietest sculptors. It moves without urgency, folding itself around obstacles, flowing through cracks, soaking into soil, lifting dissolved minerals and carrying them onward. Even in its gentlest form, water is a patient force, whispering along rock surfaces in motions too subtle to measure by sight alone. Over centuries, over millennia, these whispers accumulate, guiding the shape of entire landscapes. Even a shallow stream holds this power. A microfact offers a starting point. Water can carry ions and tiny grains in suspension, and as it moves across rock, it slowly removes particles from the surface. With each pass, the stream wears the stone by an amount so small it seems meaningless, yet repeated countless times, season after season, year after year, the stone yields to the steady touch. This yielding is not surrender. It is simply a natural response, a conversation between solid and liquid, between stillness and motion. Imagine kneeling beside such a stream at dusk. The water is clear, thin, and cool, sliding over pebbles with a faint murmur that seems to rise and fall like breath. Small stones rest beneath the surface, their shapes softened by years of movement. Some are round, some oval, some gently flattened. Each one has been turned by currents too gentle to disrupt them, yet steady enough to guide their transformation. The stones rest, and as the stones rest, the stream continues, letting them move only when the moment allows. A pebble shifts a few centimetres one season, then stays still for months. A larger stone may roll once, then nestle into a shallow cradle shaped by sand. Nothing hurries. Nothing is forced. This slow dance of motion and rest leaves every pebble with its own quiet history. If you've ever held a river stone in your hand, you may recall how smooth the surface felt, how its rounded edges fit easily into your palm. The stone's texture is a soft echo of countless small collisions, stones brushing against stones, sand drifting against surfaces, water nudging everything into more harmonious forms. The stone feels calm because its journey has been long and steady, free of sudden breaks or sharp shifts. You might visualize a riverbed now, just beneath a silver blue sky. The water reflects a pale shimmer, and beneath it the stones glimmer faintly, their colours muted by depth and evening light. Some stones are pale grey, some warm brown, others almost black with subtle glints of mica. You notice how the shapes repeat. Rounded surfaces, softened lines, gentle curves. These curves come from time, from patience, from the river's willingness to persist without rushing. A reassurance arises here, quietly. You can take your time, too. Nothing in nature demands that transformation happen quickly. Water reshapes stone in moments so small they cannot be felt. And just as the river allows the stone to move only when it is ready, you can allow your thoughts to settle in their own rhythm. You can let the currents of your day drift past, each becoming softer as it moves away. Droplets also shape the world beneath your feet, carving caverns in places where water flows unseen. In regions rich with limestone, rainwater mixes with carbon dioxide from the soil, forming a weak acid. Over ages, this acidified water dissolves the rock grain by grain, creating narrow passages, then broader chambers, then vast, echoing caverns where darkness settles in thick layers. The process is slow. A thin sheet of water moves across limestone walls, removing a microscopic amount of material. Another sheet follows, then another, then many more over years beyond counting. Slowly, the rock opens into empty spaces large enough to cradle silence. Stalactites and stalagmites begin as mere drops, hesitating at the ceiling or on the floor. Each drop deposits a trace of calcium carbonate. Another drop arrives, then another. Over centuries, these traces accumulate, forming delicate stone structures that capture the rhythm of dripping water. Picture a single droplet forming on a cavern ceiling. It gathers clarity from the air, swells until it lets go and falls with a soft echo into the dark. When it lands, it leaves behind a whisper of mineral. That whisper becomes part of the shape growing upward from the floor. The cavern listens and the drip continues. The stone grows by the width of a hair in a century. The cavern grows by patience alone. The cavern grows by patience alone. And its patience mirrors your own need for rest tonight. There is no rush in the shaping of these spaces. No sudden change demands attention. Everything emerges gradually, like thoughts unwinding at their own pace, like breath settling into a slower, steadier pattern. On the open surface, rain also shapes the land. Raindrops fall on exposed rock, seeping into cracks. When temperatures drop, the water inside expands as it freezes, pressing the rock apart with gentle but relentless force. Over repeated cycles, the rock fractures. Pieces break off not through dramatic events, but through the quiet persistence of freezing and thawing. This process is called frost wedging, though the name sounds sharper than the reality. In truth, it is a methodical easing of stone, a slow encouragement for rocks to release fragments that no longer fit tightly together. What breaks away becomes part of the soil. What remains continues its patient weathering. You might imagine a cliff face under shifting light. The rock is layered and calm, its cracks filled with thin lines of shadow. Over years, perhaps over centuries, pieces crumble and fall to the base of the cliff, forming talus slopes where plants may eventually take root. The cliff does not mourn the pieces it loses. It simply continues its long interaction with wind, water, and ice. In underground streams, water can polish stones much as surface rivers do. The channels twist and narrow, widening again into secret pools where small pebbles churn in gentle spirals. These spirals slowly grind the stones against one another, carving smooth bowls called potholes in the bedrock. The sound of the water here is different, softer, more enclosed, like a quiet hum in a dark corridor. The quiet hum settles, and as the quiet hum settles, you feel a subtle pull toward your own inner stillness. The world becomes soft around the edges, and even your thoughts begin to round themselves into simpler shapes. This is how water works, through contact, through persistence, through flow and pause, flow and pause. Its movement is a lesson in gentleness, showing that strength does not always need to be hard or forceful. Water can carve, but it also cradles. It shapes, but it also smooths. It transforms landscapes not through sudden upheaval, but through endless patience. When you consider how water softens stones over time, it becomes easier to imagine softening your own internal edges. Perhaps there are thoughts that feel rigid or concerns that feel sharp when touched. The river does not rush to erase edges, it simply continues moving past them. Over time, the sharpness fades. The stone becomes easier to hold. So too with the mind, with calm attention, with moments of rest, with breaths that feel gentle and steady. Even the thoughts that once felt rough can become smoother. They keep their shape, but the surfaces soften. They become easier to approach without fear of discomfort. Imagine now a stream winding through a quiet valley. Trees lean toward the water, their branches trailing leaves that brush the surface in slow arcs. The stream reflects the shifting patterns of sky and foliage. Beneath the surface, pebbles lie in clusters. waiting for whatever movement the current brings. Sunlight flickers through the water, creating patterns on the stones below. The scene is soft and steady, without rush or urgency. You may feel a similar flickering within yourself, thoughts appearing and fading, small lights of awareness moving across the mind. There is no need to hold them. They can drift like reflections on water, each one touching you lightly before continuing on its path. Water also carries sediments from one place to another, lifting grains of sand and silt, then depositing them downstream. Over long periods, these sediments can build new landforms, filling basins or creating deltas where rivers meet the sea. A delta grows as the river slows, dropping its sediment load in shifting patterns. Channels split and rejoin. Mud and sand accumulate in layers. Plants take root in the soft ground. The land extends farthest into the water year by year, though the change is too gradual to witness in a single lifetime. This quiet creation of new land is another reminder of slow transformation. Even when the river seems to lose strength at its end, it is still shaping the world. By slowing, it builds. By releasing what it has carried, it creates new places for life to flourish. By easing its pace, it finds a different kind of power. By easing its pace, it finds a different kind of power, and this truth settles into the space around you as softly as a drifting cloud. You do not have to push forward all the time. You do not have to maintain speed to make progress. Sometimes slowing down allows new shapes to form within you, shapes of understanding, of rest, of quiet resilience. Water is also a messenger between different parts of the landscape. Rain that falls on mountains may travel through streams to rivers, then into lakes or oceans, then rise again as vapor. Along the way it gathers minerals, dissolves salts, erodes cliffs, nourishes plants and shapes valleys. It ties everything together in cycles that loop endlessly, moving matter from high to low, from solid to liquid to gas, then back again. In this continuous movement, there is a lesson about belonging. Water does not remain in one place forever. It does not resist the pull of gravity or the warmth of sunlight. It changes form without losing itself. It participates in many landscapes without becoming trapped in any of them. In this way, water models a kind of emotional flow, the ability to move, to adapt, to rest when needed, to rise when conditions allow. You're allowed to move like this too, held by your breath, guided by what feels gentle, free to release tension without explaining why. You can let one thought melt into the next, like drops forming a stream, and let the stream find its way toward calmer ground. You can let your mind rearrange itself quietly beneath the surface, the way underground rivers carve new passages over centuries. Picture once more the river stones resting beneath twilight water. Their surfaces glisten gently as currents slip around them. A soft, rhythmic clicking sounds as one stone nudges another. The water is cool, steady, almost silver in the fading light. In this moment, everything feels calm and inevitable. The stones are exactly where they need to be. The river is exactly where it needs to be. The stone is exactly where it needs to be, and so are you. Change does not rush in these places. It simply continues, moving at the pace of breath or slower. In the slow work of water, there is a reminder that gentleness is not weakness. It is a form of endurance. In the soft rounding of stone, there is a reminder that time can ease what feels rigid. In the quiet carving of streams there is a reminder that even the smallest motions matter. And from the whisper of water, the path begins to drift inward again, toward the chambers beneath the land, toward the stone rooms where the earth learns to whisper in deeper tones. The journey continues, shaped by slow currents and quiet patience, guiding you softly into the next still place beneath the surface of the world, where sunlight fades to memory and sound folds inward on itself. Caves grow in silence. They're shaped not by sudden force, but by water drifting through stone, dissolving tiny grains, widening narrow channels into hollow rooms that breathe with the slow rhythm of the earth. A cave begins with a crack, a small weakness in limestone or dolomite, and water seeps into it with no urgency at all. Drop by drop, season after season, the stone yields its minerals to the liquid passing through, and the space expands. The earliest chambers are barely more than narrow veins in the rock, thin as the space between thoughts. With time, they broaden into corridors where darkness settles like dust. The stone responds to water because limestone dissolves in the presence of weak acid. Rain absorbs carbon dioxide from the air and soil, forming a mild carbonic acid that can gently remove calcium carbonate from the rock. The process is subtle. A drop falling from a cave ceiling may take hours to gather. When it finally lets go, it carries with it molecules lifted from the stone above. That single drop seems small, but it is part of a lineage thousands of years long. Each drop carves a fraction of a grain. Each drop continues the shaping of the cave. Imagine entering such a place. The entrance narrows behind you, and the air cools as light thins into soft grey. The walls reflect faint glimmers where minerals catch what remains of the outside glow. Your footsteps become muted, swallowed by the thickness of the air. Even a whisper feels too loud for such a chamber. The cave seems to hold its own breath, and as you stand within it, your own breathing may begin to slow, matching the deep stillness around you. The deep stillness settles, and as the deep stillness settles, the space begins to feel like a refuge, not just of darkness, but of time moving at a different speed. Above you, thin lines of moisture gather on the ceiling. Each droplet contains dissolved minerals, mostly calcium carbonate, carried upward, downward, or sideways through tiny fractures. When a droplet hangs long enough, some of these minerals are deposited as a ring or trace on the ceiling. Over centuries, these deposits form stalactites, slender cones pointing downward like frozen threads of light. From the floor, where droplets fall and splatter, stalagmites rise in slow ascents, growing upward from scattered mineral residues. If a stalactite and stalagmite meet, they become a single column, a stone pillar shaped by nothing louder than dripping water. A single drip in the darkness can create shapes tall as trees if given enough time. Standing within such a cavern, you might picture each drip as a heart-like beat, marking time far slower than your own. The rhythm invites you into a gentler pace. In this cool, mineral-scented air, nothing presses against you. The walls do not hurry. The formations do not demand attention. They simply are, holding the silence that shaped them. The filtered scent of stone surrounds you. It is a dry scent, a quiet blend of mineral dust and cool moisture, softened by the absence of sunlight. The floor beneath your feet feels uneven yet grounded, as if each step were cushioned by centuries of sediment. Echoes behave differently here. They do not return sharply, but drift, lingering in the curves of the cave until they dissolve into soft nothing. Deep chambers widen, some so large they could hold entire forests of stone. Others narrow into winding passages no wider than your shoulders. The rock forms smooth waves in some places, sharp ridges in others, marking the shifting paths of ancient water. Even now, thin streams may continue their hidden work, slipping through crevices with a faint trickling sound that resembles a distant clock losing track of time. The faint trickling fades, and as the faint trickling fades, you feel the quiet inside your own thoughts deepen. Words become softer, edges round. The space within feels as sheltered as the stone rooms beyond sight. Some caves hold pools so still that the surface mirrors the ceiling with perfect clarity. These pools, fed by slow seepage, remain untouched by wind. The water rests almost unmoving, like glass laid delicately across stone. Minerals precipitate at the edges, forming rimstone dams that look like folded petals or shallow bowls. The structures are fragile in their beauty, yet formed through thousands of repeated actions. A deposit here, a crystallization there, calm water building calm stone. If you look closely, you might see a pale shimmer beneath the pool's surface, grains of calcite drifting gently, settling in new arrangements. The water is not entirely still. It breathes with the cave, responding to tiny changes in temperature or pressure. Even stillness has movement, hidden below the threshold of perception. The formations of caves reveal this principle again and again. Flowstone sheets drape along walls like frozen waterfalls, their surfaces rippled by the paths of mineral-rich water. Draperies hang from ceilings, thin and translucent, as if sculpted from folded marble. Helictites branch in impossible directions, defying gravity because their growth is guided by the pressure of water within tiny channels, not by simple dripping. These structures feel almost alive in their delicate unpredictability. Yet each one is only the result of minerals seeking stability, finding their place as water evaporates or releases its load. If too much water flows, no structure forms. If too little flows, growth ceases. The beauty emerges from balance, a quiet equilibrium between movement and rest. Equilibrium arrives, and as equilibrium arrives, the cave seems to exhale, its calm becoming part of your own. The darkness of a cave is different from night darkness. Night is filled with the faint glow of stars or the shifting light of the moon. Cave darkness lacks any distant illumination. It is soft and complete, a darkness that does not threaten but embraces, wrapping forms until all edges dissolve. In this darkness your senses turn inward. Touch and sound become guides, mapping gentle outlines where sight cannot reach. Biology participates in these hidden worlds too. In some caves, tiny blind fish swim in the pools, their scales pale from generations without sunlight. Their bodies navigate through touch and vibration, moving slowly, confidently, within their shadowed homes. Bats may rest on cavern ceilings, clustered in warm, soft groups. Their folded wings form silhouettes that flutter only briefly as they shift in sleep. But the cave itself remains the central presence, a structure older than any living creature inside it. There is a comfort in knowing that caves do not hurry. They are patient chambers, waiting through ice ages and warm periods, through wet climates and arid stretches, through the rise and fall of oceans. They hold within them writings of ancient floods, layers of mineral deposits that mark changes in rainfall, and patterns etched by winds long vanished. Every curve of stone tells a story written slowly and read only by those who enter with quiet hearts. Every curve tells a story, and as every curve tells a story, the deeper meaning becomes clear, that slow transformation is its own kind of truth. Within a cave, the air can feel heavier, denser, because it holds humidity and the faint weight of minerals. This heaviness does not press upon you, but rather softens your movements, encouraging slower steps and deeper breaths. The coolness soothes the body. The absence of sharp sound soothes the mind. It is a place where distractions grow thin, where only the essentials remain: stone, water, space, and breath. In such quiet, your thoughts begin to behave like the underground rivers that carve these chambers. They flow gently, touching edges without breaking them, carrying small pieces of tension away with each inward drift. Thoughts pulse and recede like the rhythm of dripping water. Clarity forms in their wake, not as brightness, but as openness. You may picture yourself sitting on a smooth stone ledge inside one of these caverns. The air is cool, the darkness is warm. You hear a subtle drip echo somewhere in the distance. The sound repeats, steady and soft, marking time in a way that feels more like breathing than clockwork. Around you, the formations glow faintly where moisture reflects the dim light of your lantern or imagination. Their shapes are gentle, flowing downward or upward in slow-growing spirals. The drip continues. And as the drip continues, you feel something in you relaxing as well. A knot untangling, a weight softening, a tension dissolving. Caves remind us that quiet work can be powerful, even when unseen. A single droplet, repeated across countless ages, can carve vast rooms. The faintest trickle can create pillars, curtains, and terraces of stone. Silence itself becomes a kind of architect, shaping the earth from within. This is the heart of geological patience, that what is slow can still be mighty, that what is soft can still create lasting forms. Even when conditions above the surface shift rapidly, the caves below continue their slow, unbothered shaping. They remain stable, consistent, grounded in a depth where change is measured in ages rather than moments. You are allowed to touch this depth within yourself, a space where nothing must be decided, a space where everything is allowed to rest, a space where thoughts dissolve into something quieter, smoother, slower. Let this cave become a metaphor for your inner world tonight, a sheltered chamber where no expectation intrudes, a stillness carved not by force, but by gentle persistence, a sanctuary formed by letting go, drop by drop. Even in the deepest darkness, the earth continues its gentle work. The cave grows where no eyes can witness it. Mineral by mineral, layer by layer, it builds beauty slowly, confidently, without urgency. And from the quiet rooms below, the path begins to lift again, toward the sands above, the soft drifting worlds shaped by wind and time, waiting with their own story of patience and lightness. Sand begins as something larger, something solid, something shaped by ancient pressures and deep-rooted histories, a mountain ridge glowing faintly under morning light, a cliff standing quiet against the wind, a river stone polished smooth by centuries of gentle rotation. All of these forms, firm and unmoving in their own ways, eventually give themselves to smaller forms. Grain by grain, they loosen. Grain by grain, they drift. What feels permanent becomes something lighter, softened by the patient motion of wind and water. Every grain of sand carries the memory of a rock that once stood tall. Granite sheds quartz crystals. Basalt weathers into dark fragments. Limestone dissolves and redeposits into tiny calcium-rich particles. Each grain is a fragment of a larger story, a quiet remnant of a long geological journey. Sand forms when rocks break down through weathering, both mechanical and chemical. Temperature changes cause expansion and contraction. Frost seeps into cracks and gently widens them. Rain carries dissolved minerals away. Wind pushes fine particles from one surface to another. Over long spans of time, these processes free grains from their parent rock. Once released, sand becomes a traveller, moving with currents, shifting with winds, settling in new places only to rise again. It is easy to imagine a single grain resting at the edge of a cliff. The wind picks up and the grain trembles, then it shifts, sliding a fraction of a millimetre downward. The movement is nearly invisible, yet it is real. Tiny motions like this create avalanches on sand dunes, shape ripples along beaches, and shift deserts one quiet breath at a time. Movement appears small, but over centuries it becomes landscape. Now picture a vast desert under a silver sky. Dunes rise and fall in soft curves, their edges sharp at dawn but blurred by evening. The surface of each dune carries fine patterns shaped by wind, delicate ripples that look like the lines of a softly played instrument. These ripples form when airflow interacts with grains, pushing them upward until they fall into a new place, creating repeating shapes that stretch across the sand like waves frozen in place. The dunes breathe, and as the dunes breathe, your own breath begins to fall into a slower rhythm. Wind does not push dunes rapidly. Instead, it moves each grain carefully, rolling it along the surface or lifting it for a brief moment before letting it settle again. This motion is known as saltation, a hopping or bouncing movement caused by airflow. Only the uppermost layer of the dune is in motion. Beneath it, the dune remains stable, holding its slow-moving shape. The top travels, the bottom rests. This duality creates a sense of dreamy balance. Sand is both moving and still, shifting and grounded, restless and calm. Even in a windstorm, each grain's path is guided by natural patterns, not chaos. Even in movement, sand finds a way to rest. Along coastal shores, sand behaves differently. Waves lift and lower grains with each cycle, creating a rhythmic pulse that feels almost like breathing. Water rushes forward, pressing grains together. Then it retreats, leaving small arcs and channels where the sand drains. The beach reorganizes itself constantly. Each tide makes subtle adjustments. Each wave leaves new textures, soft and intricate. You might imagine standing barefoot at such a shoreline. The sand beneath you is warm and fine, sinking slightly under your weight. Each incoming wave slides over your feet, cool and soothing. Grains swirl around your ankles, brushing lightly against your skin before retreating. The water leaves a reflective sheen on the surface, turning the shoreline into a mirror for the sky. Clouds drift across it like passing thoughts, appearing then fading. The fading clouds drift, and as the fading clouds drift, a sense of openness expands within you, wide as the beach itself. The memory held in sand spans unimaginable time. Some grains have travelled from mountains to seas, from seas to deserts, from deserts back to rivers. Others come from coral reefs or volcanic islands. Still others began as shells, now ground into soft calcium-rich particles that blend with quartz. The diversity of sand comes from the diversity of Earth's processes: volcanic, biological, chemical, erosional, all woven together in a delicate tapestry of fragments. Even the colour of sand tells a story. White sands often come from coral or shell fragments, black sands from volcanic lava, pink sands from tiny fragments of red foraminifera, golden sands from quartz, and feldspar. Each colour reflects different origins, different histories. When you walk across a beach, you walk across the remnants of many worlds. In some places, dunes move across the land like slow waves. Entire fields of sand migrate with the wind, advancing inches each year. A dune's crest may shift gradually, but its volume remains intact, simply reshaped. The desert appears timeless, yet it is always in motion. You might imagine a dune crest illuminated by moonlight, appearing still, yet beneath that stillness, countless grains shift in soft, nearly silent cascades. Silent cascades fall, and as silent cascades fall, the idea of slow change becomes gentler within your mind. Sand also forms in caves when mineral-rich water deposits tiny crystals in sheltered pockets. These grains, often spherical and known as cave pearls, tumble gently in dripping water until they become smooth and polished. In these hidden worlds, sand is not shaped by wind or waves, but by vibration and mineral growth. The grains are like tiny globes resting in shallow pools, echoing the wider processes of formation found across the Earth. Across the planet, sand accumulates in dunes, riverbanks, beaches, and deserts, yet it also moves freely between these environments. Carried by windstorms, flowing rivers, migrating glaciers, or waves, sand is part of a global exchange of matter. Nothing in nature holds on to form permanently. Everything participates in cycles, even the smallest particles. These cycles echo inside you. The idea that thoughts can shift, drift, and settle without being forced. That the mind can reshape itself through gentle repetition, the way dunes reshape under steady wind. That memories may soften, edges may fade, and sharp feelings may become smoother with time. Sometimes sand collects in quiet pockets, under a rock outcrop, behind a fallen branch, in the curve of a dry riverbed. These accumulations become small sanctuaries protected from movement for a while. They rest until the wind returns, then lift again into motion. In the same way, moments of stillness in your life become places where you can pause, gather strength, and settle. Eventually, movement resumes, but it begins from calm rather than from strain. Calm becomes the resting place. And as calm becomes the resting place, everything begins to feel softer around you. Beyond deserts and beaches, sand's influence extends to the formation of sandstone, a rock created when grains are pressed together and cemented by minerals over millions of years. In these stones, the memory of every grain remains visible. Some appear as faint layers, others as swirls or bands. Sand that once drifted freely becomes part of a permanent structure. Yet even sandstone will one day weather again into sand. The cycle continues endlessly, a gentle reminder that what feels settled may change, and what feels changeable may settle. Now imagine a quiet dune at twilight. The wind has calmed, the temperature cools, the surface of the dune appears smooth, almost velvety. A faint hiss of air moves across it as the day releases its heat into the night. You stand on its crest, and the horizon stretches in soft ripples. Stars begin to emerge one by one, their light falling across the sand with the gentlest touch. The stars appear, and as the stars appear, the dune feels timeless, as if it exists in both motion and stillness at once. A deep comfort unfolds in recognizing how something so small, so seemingly insignificant as a single grain of sand, can be part of vast patterns. It reminds you that you too are part of something larger, even when you feel small. That your own slow transformations matter. That your own quiet shifts accumulate into meaning. Even the smallest particles hold stories of endurance, not through force, but through patience, not through rigidity, but through adaptability. Sand flows where it needs to go, yet it also rests where conditions allow. It listens to wind and water, then responds with graceful motion. And from these grains of time your journey drifts onward, into the world where ancient lives are preserved in stone, waiting to share their soft, echoing stories beneath layers of earth. Before any fossil takes shape, there is once a living being, a creature breathing through ancient waters, or a fern resting beneath sun filtered through a world long vanished. When that life ends, the story does not disappear. It enters the slow, patient memory of geology. Sediment settles gently over what remains, layer upon layer, until the weight of time presses the shape into permanence. A fossil is not the body preserved, but the form the body left behind. It is an echo, a quiet outline of existence, resting in stone. A fossil begins with burial, yet even that happens gently. In a calm lake, fine mud drifts downward like settling thoughts. In a shallow sea, shifting sands embrace shells, bones, or fronds with soft insistence. In river deltas, silt moves in slow currents, gathering around fallen leaves. These sediments shield the remains from scavengers and decay, creating a sanctuary where transformation can begin. Over years, minerals carried by groundwater seep through the sediments. They replace the original structures, atom by atom, until the form that remains is stone, not flesh. This slow replacement is known as permineralization, a quiet exchange where original material dissolves away while mineral deposits crystallize in the spaces left behind. The structure remains, the substance changes. In this way, fossils are neither entirely past nor entirely present. They exist between worlds, bridging immense distances of time with delicate precision. Imagine an ancient ammonite resting on a seabed millions of years ago. Its spiral shell, once home to a soft-bodied inhabitant drifting through warm, shallow oceans, settles gently into fine sediment. Over ages, sediments accumulate above it, pressing the shell deeper into the earth. Eventually, minerals seep into the chambered coils, filling every curve with new material. The ammonite becomes stone, a spiral of quiet memory. A spiral of quiet memory. And as that spiral of quiet memory rests, you sense how the world carries its history in forms both fragile and enduring. Now imagine a fern leaf falling onto damp soil during a prehistoric afternoon. Its delicate fronds lie flat, pressed lightly under the weight of fallen debris. More leaves gather, more soil piles atop them, and the fern is slowly buried. Over time, pressure compresses these layers into shale. The organic material decays, but its outline remains. When the rock eventually splits along its natural planes, it reveals the fern's imprint, every vein, every curve, preserved with the softness of a whisper. These fossil impressions are some of the most tender records the earth holds. Shadows of plants, captured in stone like pressed flowers kept between the pages of a book. Some imprints show the finest textures, the edges of petals, the thin ribs of fronds, the faint midlines of stems. They feel intimate, as if the living world simply paused long enough to leave a note. Fossil feather impressions are even more delicate. Fine mud on ancient lake beds captured the impressions of early birds or feathered dinosaurs. These impressions often reveal soft barbs, branching structures that once held air, colour, and warmth. In the rippling mud patterns beside them, paleontologists can sometimes see gentle waves recorded from breezes across the water's surface. A moment in time preserved as texture preserved. And as texture preserved becomes visible to your inner sight, the air around you feels lighter, quieter, almost suspended. Bones, shells, leaves, footprints, all can become fossils, each telling a slightly different story. Footprints, known as trace fossils, capture movement rather than bodies. The track of a trilobite scuttling across wet sediment, the path of a dinosaur walking through mud that later dried and hardened, the burrow of a small creature hiding beneath sand. These are glimpses of behaviour, moments of life caught mid-motion, preserved in stone as if time took a soft breath and held it. Time holds its breath, and as time holds its breath, your own breathing naturally slows, finding a gentler cadence. Some fossils form in amber, ancient tree resin hardened into golden clarity. In these pieces, insects, pollen grains, even small lizards can be preserved with astonishing detail. A mosquito wing retains its delicate veins. A tiny spider remains suspended mid-stride, trapped not by violence, but by the slow flow of resin. They become encased in a material that protects them from decay, sealing them into stillness. Amber fossils carry an intimacy unlike any other, capturing life in a moment so immediate it feels like a pause rather than a loss. Amber glows warm under light. Holding a piece, you can see bubbles trapped inside, fractures that shimmer, and tiny inclusions that tell stories of forests long fallen. The piece itself feels light in the hand, warmer than most stones, as if holding on to a hint of the sun that once shone on the trees producing its resin. Now imagine that you are walking along a quiet beach where water meets sandstone cliffs. A thin layer has broken away, revealing a fossilized shell inside. Its ridges curve gracefully. Untouched for millions of years, the shell remains folded in stone as though placed there deliberately, resting peacefully beneath your fingertips. It is a reminder of seas that once covered this place, creatures that once lived here, worlds that once thrived in gentle rhythms now lost to time. Here, time does not feel heavy. It feels soft, like layers of sediment settling over ancient shores. Softness arrives, and as softness arrives, your thoughts begin to drift with the same slow ease. Some fossils record sudden events, like volcanic ash preserving entire forests, or mud flows burying herds of animals. But even then, the process of fossilization itself is slow. As remains become buried deeper, pressure increases. Minerals flow through pore spaces, organic materials transform into stone. The world above may change rapidly, but the world below remains calm, processing these events with patience. Much of what we know about Earth's past comes from these patient processes. Fossils reveal climates that were once warm where now they are cold, seas where now there are mountains, forests where now deserts stretch under open skies. They speak in shapes and shadows, telling stories not with words but with form and texture. To study them is to learn the language of deep time, a language of gentle transformations. Deep time feels immense, yet fossils bring it close. You can hold a fossil in your hand and touch what lived hundreds of millions of years ago. This closeness bridges vast expanses of history with a single moment of contact. In that moment, the mind grows quiet. Awe becomes gentle, not overwhelming. You feel connected to a lineage far older than human memory, yet simple enough to rest within your palm. Rest in your palm. And as rest settles into your palm, it settles into your thoughts as well, easing them into wider, calmer spaces. Some fossils form through recrystallization, where minerals within a shell dissolve and then regrow in different arrangements. The shape remains constant, but the interior changes. Others form through carbonization, where volatile compounds escape and leave behind a thin carbon film outlining the original organism. This happens often with plants and soft-bodied creatures. What remains is a delicate shadow of life compressed into a sheet of stone. Shadow fossils often appear in slate or shale, where layers cleave easily. When these rocks split open, the fossils inside emerge as though waking from deep sleep. They rest there quietly, revealing details no human eye has ever seen before. Each layer that opens adds another whisper to the story of life. In some places, fossils lie in exposed outcrops, edges revealed by erosion. In others, they remain hidden underground, waiting for the right conditions to surface. These hidden remains do not rush to be found. They wait, embedded within formations shaped by geological processes that move slowly and steadily. The patience of fossils teaches a softer kind of time, one that does not measure days or years but embraces eons. Fossils also show that life has always adapted to changing conditions. Species emerge, flourish, and eventually give way to others. This cycle mirrors the Earth's rhythms, constant transformation, constant renewal. The fossil record is a testament to resilience, to the ability of life to shift and reshape itself across unimaginable spans. In the quiet of these reflections, you may sense how your own life carries echoes of earlier forms, old habits, old fears, old strengths, each layer shaping the present. Like fossils, your experiences become part of your foundation, not by trapping you, but by reminding you how far you've come. The past rests within you as gently as a leaf imprint in stone, holding shape without demanding attention. Holding shape without demanding attention. And as this idea settles, you feel space opening inside you, wide and calm as a valley shaped by ancient seas. There is also comfort in knowing that fossils endure because they were protected, not through force, but through shelter. Covered by sediment, shielded from disturbance, they transformed quietly. This process reflects a truth that rest itself can be transformative. When you feel protected, when you feel held, your inner world can shift softly, peacefully. Tonight invites that kind of rest, where you're shielded from urgency and allowed to drift at your own pace. Fossils show that even when the substance of something changes, its essence can remain. They remind us that transformation does not erase identity, it refines it. Leaves become impressions, shells become mineral replicas, bones become stone, yet their shapes remain faithful to the lives they once held. This continuity across time suggests that your own quiet changes do not erase who you are. They reveal new forms of the same underlying self, calmer, softer, more at peace. And now imagine a fossil bed stretching across a quiet plain at sunset. Low light warms the stones, tiny embedded shapes catch the glow. Trilobites, shells, spirals, fronds. Each form appears as a soft outline, a whisper of something once alive. The ground feels ancient beneath your feet, yet welcoming. You kneel and brush your fingers across a smooth imprint. The stone is cool. The shape is gentle. The moment is still. The moment is still. And as the moment is still, the night around you deepens into a more restful quiet. Fossils are the Earth's most patient storytellers. They speak of worlds that moved slowly, oceans that breathed in steady tides, forests that grew beneath unfamiliar skies. They remind you that change, even when immense, can unfold gently. They reveal that memory can be held in unexpected forms. What is preserved is not the substance, but the shape, the quiet truth of what once was. And with these soft echoes beside you, your journey continues to the stones that do not simply remember the past, but glow from within it. The gemstones formed through pressure, clarity, and the slow artistry of the earth. Deep within the earth, where pressure rises and temperatures hum with low, ancient warmth, minerals begin to shift into new forms. They reorganize, refine, and crystallize under conditions that feel almost unreal compared to the quiet surface above. Here, in these hidden chambers of heat and compression, gemstones are born, not suddenly, not loudly, but through a slow, deliberate choreography that unfolds over thousands or millions of years. A gemstone is not simply a mineral. It is a mineral that has endured, one that has taken the pressures placed upon it and turned them into clarity. Gemstones grow in spaces where the right elements, the right heat, and the right pressure find one another. When conditions align, atoms settle into arrangements that are more precise, more structured, more radiant than ordinary crystal lattices. This process is a kind of geological meditation, matter slowly finding its perfect order, refining itself with each passing moment. Deep underground, the Earth's mantle and crust act like massive, patient artisans shaping these luminous forms. Consider quartz, one of the most abundant minerals on Earth, yet capable of transforming into amethyst or citrine depending on the trace elements within it. A tiny amount of iron in the crystal and long exposure to natural radiation can turn a clear quartz into the soft violet of amethyst. Slight variations in oxidation shift that violet to yellow, forming citrine. Nothing drastic happens in these transformations, no sudden break or violent upheaval, only gradual, subtle changes in chemistry, guided by heat and time. Heat and time move quietly, and as heat and time move quietly, they reveal how beauty can arise from gentle changes rather than dramatic ones. Now imagine a cavity within a volcanic rock, a hollow left behind by cooling gas bubbles. Mineral-rich water seeps into the cavity, bringing dissolved silica and other elements. As the water cools or evaporates, quartz crystals begin to grow on the walls. At first they are small, delicate points. Then, over years, they lengthen into well-formed prisms. Inside this sheltered chamber, untouched by the outside world, a geode forms. From the outside it looks plain, rough, almost unremarkable. But open it, and the inner surface glows with amethyst or white quartz, sparkling softly like starlight captured in stone. A geode's quiet transformation mirrors something in you, the way your inner world can hold brightness even when the surface feels muted. Inner clarity, like inner calm, often grows in hidden spaces, protected from disturbance. Protected spaces allow growth, and as protected spaces allow growth, something in you begins to soften into that same gentle truth. Move deeper into the Earth's crust and imagine the conditions that give rise to garnets. These gemstones form during metamorphism, when rocks are altered by heat and pressure without melting completely. In these environments, atoms break old bonds and form new ones, creating minerals that reflect the intense yet steady conditions around them. Garnets grow as if blooming from the heart of the rock, their shapes symmetrical and strong, their colours deep and grounding. Red garnets are common, but they can also be green, orange or black depending on the elements involved. The clarity of garnet comes from balance, enough pressure to encourage rearrangement, enough heat to allow new shapes, enough time for the process to complete. Under too much stress, minerals might fracture. Under too little, they may never form. The beauty of garnet emerges in the space between extremes. The space between extremes becomes a refuge, and as the space between extremes becomes a refuge, breath settles into a gentler steadiness. Now picture a piece of sapphire forming within metamorphic rock. Sapphires are a variety of corundum, aluminum oxide arranged in a dense lattice. When trace amounts of titanium and iron find their place within the structure, the crystal takes on its deep blue hue. Under heat and pressure, the corundum grows layer by layer into a gem capable of catching and bending light in a way that feels almost otherworldly. Blue sapphire carries the calm of deep water. In low light, it appears almost velvety. In brighter light, it reveals bright streaks of brilliance. Some sapphires even display star-like patterns known as asterism, produced by fine inclusions aligned within the crystal. This star glides across the surface when the stone is moved beneath a light source, a soft glimmer that feels like a quiet message written in brightness. Quiet messages appear, and as quiet messages appear, the night seems to listen a little closer. Another gemstone with inner fire is opal. Unlike quartz or sapphire, opal does not form a rigid crystal lattice. Instead, it consists of tiny spheres of silica arranged in an orderly pattern. When light enters the stone, it bends around these spheres and diffracts into shimmering colours, blues, greens, reds, oranges, shifting as the angle changes. Opal is a gemstone shaped by water. It forms when silica-rich solutions seep into cracks and evaporate, leaving behind layers of tiny spheres. The result is a stone that holds light like water holds reflections. Opposite opal in structure, yet equally gentle in presence, is amber, not a mineral at all, but fossilized tree resin. Amber forms when resin drips from ancient trees, trapping insects, pollen, or small fragments of bark. Over millions of years, the resin hardens, preserving everything inside with astonishing clarity. Holding a piece of amber feels like holding a sunlit moment from a distant world. Its warmth in the hand, its golden glow, its quiet inclusions all reveal the subtle interplay between life and time. Amber warms slowly, and as amber warms slowly, the sense of being held by the earth deepens. Diamonds, too, form deep within the earth, under immense pressures far below the crust. Carbon atoms bond in a tight three-dimensional lattice, creating a structure that is both incredibly strong and brilliantly reflective. Diamonds rise to the surface only through volcanic eruptions powerful enough to bring them up in shafts of magma called kimberlites. Despite their dramatic transportation, the diamond's birth remains slow and steady, taking place in near silence over millions of years. Much of a diamond's beauty comes from the stability of its structure. Strong bonds, tight lattice, precise alignment. Yet even diamonds can carry inclusions, tiny imperfections that reflect the conditions of their formation. Some inclusions are remnants of minerals trapped during growth. Others are small distortions in the crystal lattice. These features do not diminish the stone. They make it unique, a record of pressures endured. pressures endured become patterns. And as pressures endured become patterns, your own history begins to feel softer, shaped into meaning rather than weight. Every gemstone holds echoes of the conditions that shaped it. Heat leaves behind clarity or cloudiness. Pressure forms symmetry or distortion. Chemistry creates colour. Time adds stability. None of these processes happen quickly. They unfold at a pace too slow to witness, yet perfect for the forms they create. Consider how gemstones grow in pockets of rock surrounded by solid material. They do not rush or expand outward aggressively. Instead, they make use of whatever open space they have. They grow inwards, building upon their own structure, adding new layers of calm order. Their growth is introspective, a quiet construction of self within boundaries set by the world around them. Your own calm can form in similar ways, not by expanding beyond what feels possible, but by settling gently into the spaces available, building peace a layer at a time. The Earth's deepest minerals also reveal the importance of stillness. In places where the environment remains stable for eons, crystals can grow larger, clearer, more symmetrical. Disturbance disrupts growth. Consistency supports it. In remote caves in Mexico, crystals of selenite have grown to staggering sizes, some as large as trees. These formations required an environment that remained nearly unchanged for hundreds of thousands of years. Warm water saturated with minerals, stable temperatures, uninterrupted time. Uninterrupted time creates clarity. And as uninterrupted time creates clarity, your thoughts drift into their own quiet alignment. When we hold gemstones, polished or raw, tiny or large, we hold forms shaped by deep patience. The smooth surface of a tumbled agate, the shimmering layers inside a labradorite, the quiet glow of moonstone all come from geological processes that never hurried. Gemstones are reminders that beauty emerges not through force, but through alignment, through the slow settling of matter into harmonious form. They also remind us that pressures do not always break us. Sometimes they refine us. Sometimes they reveal inner structures we did not know existed. A gemstone is the Earth's way of showing that even under immense pressure, something luminous can form. Imagine now a small collection of gemstones resting in your hand. A deep blue sapphire, a glowing opal, a piece of amber warm against your skin, a smooth piece of rose quartz with its soft pink hue. Each one carry a different kind of calm, sapphire with its depth, opal with its shifting colours, amber with its captured sunlight, quartz with its steady clarity. Their presence is quiet, their energy unhurried. They rest easily in your palm as if remembering the long journey that brought them here. They rest easily, and as they rest easily, your own body begins to release tension, inch by inch, breath by breath. Gemstones do not speak, but they teach through their existence. They show how order can emerge from chaos, how clarity can arise from heat, how beauty can form through pressure, how patience can shape worlds, and how even in darkness light can find pathways to shine through. And from this inner glow, the path leads outward again, towards stones shaped not by depth, but by movement, stones carried gently by rivers, softened by time, waiting quietly in flowing water for the next chapter of their unhurried journey. Along the quiet beds of rivers, where water folds around pebbles with soft persistence, stones learn a different kind of shaping. They're not forged by deep pressure or intense heat, but by touch, steady, rhythmic, and endlessly patient. A river stone carries the memory of thousands of small movements, a slight roll during spring floods, a gentle turn in summer's slow current, a brief lift in swirling eddies when the water runs high. Over seasons, over centuries, these motions smooth the sharpness away, revealing curves that feel almost made for the human hand. It begins with abrasion, a process so subtle that a single moment reveals nothing, yet its effects stretch across time like a hidden tide. When stones brush against one another, tiny grains detach. When sediment swirls in the current, it polishes surfaces grain by grain. The river does not rush this work. It touches lightly, repeatedly, with the same quiet insistence found in breath flowing through the body. Breath flows gently, and as breath flows gently, the river's slow shaping begins to echo inside you, calling forth your own readiness to soften. Picture a river at twilight, when the sky dims to a gentle silver and the water mirrors the fading light. Beneath the surface, pebbles shift slightly as the current passes over them. They do not tumble wildly. They ease into new positions with a softness that feels like drifting half asleep. Some stones nestle against others, forming small pockets of stillness where the water flows more slowly. Others sit exposed in the open current, their surfaces glistening with reflective sheen. This twilight river is not loud. It murmurs. Its sound is a low, soothing thread, weaving through fallen branches, past moss-soft banks, over smooth stones worn thin by patience. As you imagine it, your senses begin to settle into its rhythm, a sound like a quiet conversation, a colour like dusk resting on water, a texture like cool stone carried in the palm. The cool stone rests, and as the cool stone rests, the space within you expands into calm, steady and wide. River stones are shaped primarily by a process called attrition, stones colliding gently as water pushes them together, but the collisions are not harsh. They are softened by the cushion of water, by the pliability of sediment, by the slow nature of the river's pace. Even during floods, the water's force is distributed over countless grains and surfaces. The shaping happens equally in moments of movement and moments of stillness. This balance between motion and rest is essential. Stones do not become smooth by constant tumbling. They become smooth by alternating between drifting and settling. Motion wears edges down. Rest allows new surfaces to face the water. Over time, every face of the stone meets the current in its own moment. You can carry this idea into yourself, that you do not need constant change to transform. Alternation between movement and stillness is enough. The mind reshapes itself by breathing in, breathing out, and allowing enough quiet between thoughts for their edges to round. At the base of waterfalls, stones experience a different rhythm. Water churns with gentle force, swirling pebbles in small circles known as eddies. The stones rub against one another in these whirling pockets, creating smooth hollows in the bedrock called plunge pools. The motion is continuous yet tender, as if the stones are being lulled into softness by the river's patient hands. In underground rivers, the same principles apply, but the setting is different. Here, darkness guides the process. Pebbles slide against calcite walls, their surfaces faintly polished by dissolving minerals in the water. Sound travels in muted tones, each collision a quiet tap softened by the cavern's echoing chambers. The water in these dark corridors often carries suspended particles that drift like underwater dust, stroking the stones with mineral-rich touch. Now imagine bending down to pick up a river stone yourself, It sits cool in your palm, its weight grounding yet gentle. Its surface feels almost silky, worn down to a smoothness that no tool could replicate. The stone's colour deepens when wet, a muted green, a quiet brown, a smoke grey touched with silver flecks. Tiny fractures healed by time lace the stone with subtle patterns. The longer you hold it, the more you can feel its story. It has moved through water, endured pressure, rested beneath sediment and survived winters and summers. Yet here it is, calm, unbroken, softened. Here it is, softened. And as here it is softened, your own edges begin to loosen, relaxing into the same steady ease. River stones also teach the art of sorting. As water flows, it separates stones by size and density. Heavier stones settle first, forming bars near the river's edge. Lighter stones travel farther, sometimes for miles, before finding a place to rest. This natural sorting creates bands of different textures, coarse gravel in one area, fine sand in another. The river knows where each piece belongs, not by logic but by flow. It is the same with thoughts. Some settle quickly, resolving themselves with ease. Others drift for a while, travelling through different moods and moments before finding their place. Not all thoughts need to settle at once. They will find their resting points when the current within you slows enough for clarity. Clarity arrives slowly, and as clarity arrives slowly, the inner current becomes gentler, more welcoming to rest. In some places, rivers carve deep channels, shaping stones into rare forms. Flint nodules form within chalk beds and are later carried by water, becoming smoothed into soft ovals. Agates, once formed in volcanic cavities, roll downstream until their rough surfaces wear away, revealing the faint translucence within. Jasper, carnelian, and other microcrystalline quartz varieties begin as irregular fragments and eventually become polished gems of the river. Each one shows how time can reveal deeper layers of beauty through nothing more than gentle interaction. River stones also serve as repositories of memory. The patterns of wear, the faint scratches, the smooth planes all reflect the journey the stone has taken. One stone may have spent decades resting in one bend of the river, then suddenly been lifted during a flood and carried miles downstream. Another stone may have remained close to its origin, changed only by rainwater and seasonal shifts. Every stone holds a map of its path carved into its surface. Your own experiences leave patterns in you as well. Soft lines of growth, faint traces of difficulty, smooth surfaces where old pressures have worn away. These patterns do not define you entirely. They simply reveal the landscapes you have travelled. You carry them quietly, the way the river carries stones, without needing to display them or explain them. Carrying quietly becomes a soft comfort, and as carrying quietly becomes a soft comfort, the night around you deepens into even steadier calm. On river banks, stones cluster in pockets that feel almost intentional. Larger stones shelter smaller ones. Flat stones stack naturally. Some areas seem arranged by chance, others by the subtle guidance of water finding its easiest path. These clusters act as small sculptures created by nature, temporary arrangements of form, texture and colour that shift month by month. Imagine sitting beside such a cluster. The water laps gently at the edges. A faint clicking sound emerges as stones shift against one another when the current changes. Moss grows between them in soft, feathery patches. Leaves drift by on the water's surface, yellow, brown, pale green, moving past like unhurried thoughts. You sit quietly, feeling your own breath align with the river's rhythm. The more you imagine the scene, the softer your internal pace becomes. Thoughts slow, muscles loosen. The world narrows to the sound of water, the coolness of stone, the warmth of your own calm. Stone and water meet. And as stone and water meet, they remind you that resilience does not come from resisting change, but from flowing with it. Every rounded river stone was once something sharper, something more angular. With time, it learned to surrender its edges, not by force, but by touch. Not through violence, but through repeated moments of gentle contact. That is the quiet philosophy of the river, that what is softened can still be strong, and what is shaped can still remain whole. Softening does not diminish strength. It reveals a new form. The river's patience becomes a lesson in your own ability to shift lightly, to let go of tension without losing yourself, to allow experiences to shape you without erasing you, to trust that, like the river stone, you can become smoother, calmer, more centered through the smallest, quietest changes. The world's gentlest forces can transform everything, and from the river's patience, the journey continues, guiding you toward the next realm of quiet transformation, the slow exhale of weathering, where stone meets air, wind, and time, shifting into new forms with peaceful inevitability. Weathering begins where stone meets the open air. It is the earth's softest transformation, not carving with the push of water or sculpting with the pull of gravity, but changing stone through simple exposure to wind, rain, warmth, cold, and life. Nothing dramatic announces its arrival. It works in quiet breaths, easing edges, loosening grains, opening hairline fractures so slowly they seem still. Weathering is the earth unwinding, the outer skin of the planet releasing tension accumulated over ages. One soft truth anchors this chapter. Weathering is the breakdown of rock at or near the surface through physical, chemical, and biological processes. It is how mountains eventually rest, how cliffs soften, how soil forms from stone. Every landscape you've ever seen, every valley, hill, plain, and coastline owes its shape to this slow exhale. Picture a granite boulder resting under a pale morning sky. At noon, sunlight warms its surface. At night, the temperature drops and the stone contracts slightly. These expansions and contractions repeat countless times, creating tiny fractures. Over years, these fractures extend deeper, loosening outer layers. This is physical weathering. No force but temperature, no sound but silence. The silence spreads. And as the silence spreads, your own inner surfaces begin to release what they no longer need to hold. Another form of physical weathering appears in frost. Water slips into cracks during warmer hours. When the air cools, the water freezes, expanding gently but firmly. This expansion widens the cracks more each season, eventually breaking pieces of rock apart. Known as frost wedging, it is one of the quietest forces in nature, a patient cycle of filling and releasing, widening and easing. Imagine a cliff face under winter's soft light. The air is cool, the scent of snow faint in the breeze. Tiny crystals form inside invisible fractures. In the hush of night, these crystals grow, pushing against stone with the strength born not of force, but of transformation. Ice is simply water taking on a new form. Yet this new form has the power to reshape mountains grain by grain. Water taking on a new form becomes its own kind of message, and as water taking on a new form becomes clear, your mind begins to settle deeper into its own gentle shifts. Chemical weathering works differently. Instead of pushing rocks apart, it alters the minerals themselves, softening stone into clay or dissolving certain components entirely. Rainwater absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, forming carbonic acid, weak but steady in its effect. When this water meets rocks like limestone or feldspar-rich granite, it reacts with the minerals, transforming them. Limestone dissolves slowly, becoming part of underground rivers and caverns. Feldspar breaks down into soft clays that enrich the soil. You might imagine a small patch of earth freshly washed by rain. The ground is dark and cool, rich with new minerals freed from their stony origins. The scent is earthy and comforting, carrying hints of dissolved stone and fallen leaves. Each raindrop that touched the rock above contributed to this soil, creating a space where plants can take root. Soft soil forms, and as soft soil forms, the sense of nourishment around you grows, steady and warm. Biological weathering completes the trilogy. Roots press into cracks, not with violence, but with steady pressure. As the roots grow, they widen the spaces, helping loosen pieces of rock. Lichens also participate, tiny organisms that cling to stone surfaces, slowly dissolving minerals through mild acids they produce. Even the smallest forms of life become part of the Earth's reshaping. Picture a tree growing beside a boulder. Its roots extend downward, weaving into narrow spaces, embracing the stone with slow strength. Over decades, over centuries, this gentle persistence reshapes both tree and rock. The tree gains stability. The rock releases what it can. Their relationship is one of mutual adjustment, not dominance. Mutual adjustment feels like a breath shared, and as mutual adjustment settles around you, the world inside feels softer, more spacious. Weathering also creates landscapes of quiet beauty. In deserts, wind lifts small grains and carries them across rock surfaces, etching smooth patterns and delicate arches. In cold regions, freeze-thaw cycles form talus slopes, fan-shaped accumulations of broken rock resting at the base of cliffs. On coastlines, salt crystallizes in rock pores, opening spaces as it grows, shaping shorelines with patient insistence. These patterns take time. They emerge not through sudden action, but through countless repetitions of gentle processes. Much like your own internal changes, the soft rounding of thoughts, the gradual easing of old tensions, the widening of spaces within the mind to let in calm. Calm widens its space. And as calm widens its space, even long-held worries begin to erode into something gentler, something manageable. One of the most remarkable outcomes of weathering is soil, the foundation of most life on land. Soil forms when rock breaks down into smaller particles and mixes with organic material. Without weathering, the earth would have no place for roots to anchor, no medium for nutrients to cycle, no softness for seeds to take hold. Soil represents both the end and the beginning, a product of stone transforming into something that can support life. Imagine holding a handful of rich soil. It feels cool, textured, faintly damp. Hidden within it are minerals from ancient rocks, tiny pieces of mountains carried through time, offering nourishment to the world above. This transformation is quiet yet essential, a reminder that breaking down can also be a way of opening up. Opening up feels gentle, and as opening up feels gentle, you may find yourself exhaling more easily, releasing tension grain by grain. Some landscapes show weathering in dramatic forms, but the processes themselves remain soft. Spheroidal weathering, for example, rounds angular boulders into smooth shapes by wearing down their corners. Exfoliation peels thin layers from rock surfaces, like pages slowly lifting from an ancient book. Honeycomb weathering forms small cavities in rock faces near coastlines, patterns that look delicate despite the strength of the stone. Each of these textures comes from slow, steady interactions. Wind touching stone, salt crystallizing, water sinking into pores, heat expanding surfaces. Even the harshest environments create gentle changes when given enough time. Time itself becomes the quiet sculptor. And as time becomes the quiet sculptor, the contours of your own life begin to feel more forgiving. Consider a mountain range under shifting clouds. Peaks that once rose sharply now stand softened by ages of weathering. Their ridges have rounded. Their slopes have eased. Rivers have carved valleys between them. Forests grow in places that were once bare rock. Every change happened slowly, patiently. The mountains did not resist. They adapted. They allowed the world to move across them, shaping them into forms that feel welcoming and ancient. These softened mountains mirror your own capacity to adapt, not through abrupt transformation, but through steady acceptance, the gentle refining of old forms into something smoother. Weathering teaches that even the strongest structures undergo quiet change, that nothing remains rigid forever. That softness is not a sign of weakness, but sign of harmony between inner and outer worlds. This harmony unfolds within you now, a slow easing, a gentle release, a sense of letting go, not all at once, but grain by grain, layer by layer. Even the strongest forms ease themselves back into the world, and with this slow exhale, your journey continues, drifting into the final reflections that wait above the surface, ready to gather everything you've seen and felt into a single, restful closing. You've travelled through silence and science tonight, moving through minerals, stones, sands, and the soft echoes of long ago lives. Each chapter unfolded like a slow breath, carrying you deeper into the patient rhythms of the earth. Now, as we rise gently toward the surface, the world around you begins to brighten in subtle tones, not awake, not alert, but softened in the way early dawn softens the edges of a landscape. This return is not an ending, it is a settling, as though geology itself is guiding you back with the same calm persistence it uses to shape mountains and rivers. The journey you've taken has been wide and quiet. You drifted first into the realm of minerals forming in slow, crystalline alignment, then into the deep chambers of the earth where caves whispered their cool stories. You felt the patient motion of rivers shaping stone, the drifting sands of deserts reshaping themselves one grain at a time, the past held gently in fossils, the glow of gemstones forming under pressure, the steady smoothing of river stones, and finally the exhale of weathering softening the world into soil. All of these processes, slow, patient, unhurried, begin to settle into your own breathing now. Your breathing settles, and as your breathing settles, the world inside you grows quieter, softer, calm. The smallest geological moments reflect the gentlest truths about rest. A grain of sand drifting in a breeze, a crystal forming in a pocket of cooling water. A fossil imprint holding the shape of a leaf that once basked in ancient sunlight. These are not loud transformations, they are quiet ones, guided by time and balance. These small motions become metaphors for the calm available to you now, the kind that does not demand anything, the kind that welcomes you exactly as you are. Even slow water shapes the world, Even the faintest breeze guides a dune. Even the gentlest drip forms a stalactite. And even the smallest act of settling, a long breath, a softened thought, a moment of release, can reshape your inner landscape in ways you may not see immediately, but will feel in time. Feel this time stretching out softly around you. The quiet is not empty. It is full of gentle movement, the kind too subtle to measure, the kind that hums beneath the threshold of sound. The earth is always changing, always breathing, always finding new ways to return to balance. You are part of that rhythm now. Part of that rhythm, you drift a little deeper into stillness. The edges of your thoughts soften, the transitions between moments blur, and the weight of the day grows lighter. There is nothing you need to hold up anymore, nothing you need to solve. Like a stone resting at the bottom of a river, cool, settled, steady, you're allowed to simply be here, without pressure, without urgency. You're allowed to rest. And as you allow yourself to rest, the mind begins to follow, sliding into ease the way sand settles after a passing breeze. Think of crystals forming slowly in dark pockets beneath the earth. Their lattices align without force, without instruction. Clarity emerges from stillness, from time, from the gentle meeting of the right conditions. Your own clarity forms in similar ways, not when you try to force it, but when you give yourself space to breathe, to soften, to drift. Think of fossils, preserved because they were held, sheltered, protected by layers of earth. In the same way, the quiet you create for yourself tonight can hold and protect you. It can take old shapes, old worries, old stories, and slow them into gentler forms. You do not need to do anything for this to happen. Rest does the work all on its own. Think of river stones, shaped not by sudden force but by a lifetime of gentle touches. Their smoothness is not weakness. It is wisdom written across their surfaces by the river's soft persistence. The same persistence shapes your calm now, breath touching the edges of thought, breath smoothing what feels sharp, breath guiding you into quiet. And think of weathering, the slow exhale of the earth, releasing grains from stone, easing mountains into soil. It reminds you that even the strongest structures soften, even the tallest forms learn to yield. There is peace in this yielding, peace in knowing that nothing in nature holds itself rigid forever. Nothing in you must be rigid tonight. You can loosen your grasp on waking. You can let thought drift like dust settling through a sunbeam. You can allow the heaviness in your body to sink downward like sediment finding its resting place. If you're still awake, your body already remembers how to rest. The knowledge is ancient, older than memory, older than words, a rhythm as old as the earth itself. Your breath is part of that rhythm, rising and falling like tides, drifting like dunes, echoing the slow pulse of geological time. And as this rhythm carries you, you return gently to the surface of your own awareness, not to become alert again, but to settle into a softer version of yourself, a self unburdened, a self smoothed by patience, a self ready for sleep. Thank you for sharing this quiet space, for drifting through the slow science of stone and time, for letting the world fall away long enough to hear the earth whisper its calm. Rest is part of the world's oldest rhythm. Good night.